Hi, I'm Mr. Stevens, and today we're going to talk to you about the basics of a market economy. And basically, what type of economy do we have here in the U.S.? Well, a lot of people say that we have a market economy, and they're not wrong. We do have a market economy, but there are some other terms that you will see floating around in the news. And some of those terms, first one obviously is the market economy. Next one is a capitalist system where it's a form of market economy. It's very, very close. That basically means that people are free to kind of do what they want, but there's a little bit of government involvement. And then there's the free market system, which we're not truly a free market system because a true free market system doesn't really have government involvement in the economy. And then there's the free enterprise system, which we will talk about later today. So you will see those four things used interchangeably in different types of news outlets. And just so that you know that most people in the U.S., they're basically talking about the same general thing. And that's what we're going to talk to you about today is what are the basic components of a market economy. And when we talk about a market economy, right now we're kind of talking about what are the basics of a market economy, especially in the United States. So let's get into it. What are the basic characteristics? Well, the first one is the ability to have and own private property. We're just going to list these six, and then we'll move on to the next. I'll go through and I'll explain what each of these are. The next one is free enterprise, self-interest, competition, system of markets and prices, and then limited government. And so let's get into this first one. Private property. One of the main fundamental aspects of a market economy is for us to be able to own our own stuff. In a lot of other countries, you don't have the ability to own private property. If you do have something, it essentially belongs to the government and they can come take it whenever they want. But for right now, individuals and businesses own most of the land and capital goods. And that's important because the government does not own, especially in the U.S. or the state, they don't own a good chunk of the land. They own some of it, and they own different parts around the country and around the state. But for the most part, most of the land is owned by private citizens. And why is that a good thing? Because it provides incentives. If we are allowed to own private property, that means that we are able to obtain that private property. And we're going to work hard so that we can acquire the resources in order for us to gain and have that private property. Where's the incentive in some of these other countries where you're not allowed to have private property and you acquire all this wealth, you acquire all this money, and you go buy these toys or you go buy this stuff, and then the government comes by sometime and says, no, that's actually ours. We're going to take that from you. Yeah, that business that you just started, you did such a great job. We're going to take that business over now. Here's a little bit of money for your troubles and goodbye. So that's not necessarily something that happens here in the U.S. that often. And we'll talk about that as the course goes on. But the ability for us to own private property is a very big deal because it does provide that incentive. And we're able to make decisions on our own allocation. Again, what does allocate mean? It means to distribute. So what does this mean that we're able to make decisions on our own allocation? Basically, I made up my own money. I have my own toys, my own stuff. Let's say I have a jet ski, or if I want to sell that, guess what? I can sell it. If I want to go buy another one, guess what? I can use the money that I've earned and I can go buy another one. So I get to determine what I want to do with my resources. So that's this first part of private property is really huge and is fundamental in the presence of a market economy. The second thing that we're going to discuss is this whole idea of a free enterprise system. And no, we're not talking about, for all of you all these Trekkie fans out there, we're not talking about that enterprise. The free enterprise system basically means that you are free to open business of your choice. If you want to get into a company and, or let's say you want to start your own business and you want to do lawn care, yeah, you can do that. Yeah, you have to fill out some paperwork and stuff, but you have the ability to do that. If you want to start up your own medical practice, you can do that. You have to have the training and the certificates and stuff to go along with that, but for the most part, you can kind of do what you want. You are free to produce and sell goods of your choice. In some countries, you're not able to do that. And especially throughout time, you didn't get a say. If you were a serf or a peasant, a lot of times you got told by the government or by your lord that this is what you are going to do, this is what you are going to produce, and even though you produce this stuff, this is the king's cabbage. They're going to take whatever cabbage that they want, and you don't necessarily get a say. But in this free enterprise system, you don't want to produce cabbage? Fine, don't. Go do something else. Go do something that you want to do. You are free to work where you want, within reason. You have to be qualified. You have to want to work there, and the people there also have to agree that, yeah, you're going to be a good fit for our company. And if those two things meet, voila, you can work there. All right? You are free to work where you want. You're not having anybody up at the top levels of government mandating that you take a test and say that you are, based on this test, you can only work at fast food restaurants, or based on this test, you have to be a dietitian. I don't know. I'm just making stuff up. But you are free to work where you want. You are free to buy goods you want with money that you earn. Again, in a free market economy, there are no handouts. The government does not get involved. They don't have food stamps. They don't offer a lot of these things. Now, we're talking about the basics of a free market economy, and we're going to have to discuss, is the U.S. a true free market economy? In some instances, yes. But again, earlier I said that we are more of a capitalistic society, where in a capitalistic society, the government does have a little bit of say. And in the truest, pure sense, we do not have a free market economy. So in a true free market economy with the free enterprise, you are free to buy goods you want with money that you earn. It's not stuff that's given to you, where they're taxing the rich and taking that money and giving it to the poor in the form of like a transfer payment, which we'll get into later in the course. But you can basically buy what you want. You want to go to Meijer and you want to buy a kayak. I don't know if Meijer has kayaks, but let's say you want to go to Cabela's. You want to go to Cabela's and buy a kayak? You can do that. You want to take that same money and you want to go to Meijer and you want to buy a new set of, you don't even have golf clubs anymore, but you want to buy a new fishing pole from Meijer? Yeah, you can go ahead and do that. So the whole idea of the free enterprise is you can work where you want, and you can buy items that you want with money that you earn. The third part of basic economy is this idea of self-interest. And the idea of self-interest basically drives people to do two of the following. It drives you to do the best that you can because it's in your self-interest. Why do you want to do so well in school? Well, a lot of people do it for various reasons. Number one, I just want to graduate high school. And that's in your self-interest. A lot of people, I need to do well in school because I need to get scholarship money because I can't afford to go to college. Other people, it's because I want to get into the best schools because I want to become a medical doctor, and they only accept the best of the best. Some of you do well because you want to please mom and dad. Some of you do well because you just don't want to be on mom and dad's bad side. So whatever it is, you are going to do what is in your best interest, and you're going to do the best that you can. And you're going to also try to get the most for your money. So if you have $20 in your pocket and you go to the store to buy a bag of Sour Patch Kids, and you see that those Sour Patch Kids at one store is $16, but you know that you can go to another store and you can get that same package for $8, well, you're going to do what you can, and you might leave the store and go pay $8 at the other store. Why? Because that's in your self-interest. Okay? No one's going to make you buy something just for the sake of buying it in a true free market economy. You can either afford it or you can't. But you're going to do the most you can with the money that you earned. And then in business, you get to earn most of the profit that you want in business. You're going to make good decisions for your company, for your employees, so that you are able to make the most amount of money possible. Now, what does that lead to? And whether or not that is acceptable in society? Yeah, there are some companies that take advantage of their workers. There are some companies that take advantage of their customers. But in a true free market economy, if people aren't happy with those businesses and their business practices, then in a true free market economy, consumers don't shop at that business anymore. They take their business elsewhere. Or another entrepreneur comes in and says, this company over here is mistreating its people, it's mistreating the customers. Come on over to our company and we'll provide the same type of quality of service, but we're also going to treat our employees fairly. And that's what is best in self-interest. And if you are working for this company over here that's not treating their employees right, well, it's in that employee's best interest to say, because of the free enterprise system, I don't have to work here anymore. I'm going to move over here and I'm going to work for this new company because they treat their employees more fairly. Now, again, this isn't in a free market economy. This isn't necessarily realistic. Again, we're dealing with models and everything here, and there are certain situations where you kind of get roped into something and you kind of are stuck and you kind of have to stay. But for all practical purposes, you're going to do what you can because that's in your self-interest. There are some people that want to go on to college and they want to do really, really well. There's some people that I just want to get out of high school. You know what? I don't want to deal with the stress of college. I want to go work at, I'm just going to throw something, I want to go work at a fast food place, which is fine. It's completely fine. You're not going to have any extra work after school. I want to go make minimum wage or slightly above minimum wage at some of these other places. I don't want to have any sort of responsibility. I just want them to tell me when I'm going to show up for work, and then after work, I'm going to collect my paycheck, and then I'm going to go do what I want with the money that I earned, which may not be a whole lot, but you know what? Some people are okay with that. Some people aren't. And so you are going to do what is in your best interest at that time, given the resources that you have available. And again, the U.S. is not necessarily a true free market economy, so that doesn't necessarily apply to all situations. There are only a handful of people that you have to know in economics. The main person that you are going to have to know is Adam Smith. And the stuff that you know about Adam Smith, if you ever watch Jeopardy, this is going to be on trivia questions that you're going to get right down the road, because this guy's name is going to come up again and again and again and again. But Adam Smith wrote this book. We'll summarize it to The Wealth of Nations, but the title of the book is something like An Inquiry into the Cause and Effect of the Wealth of Nations, blah, 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 blah. We summarize it down into The Wealth of Nations. He wrote this book in 1776, and basically it was, why are some countries wealthy and some countries aren't? And he basically concluded that the countries that are wealthy allowed their citizens to basically kind of operate in this free market economy. You want to be a blacksmith? Go be a blacksmith. Go be the best blacksmith that you want. They're not going to force you to be a blacksmith because that's what your father did and that's what his father did. And what they found is if you let people do what's in their self-interest, people are going to be happier and they're going to be more productive. Those are the people that you want working. What I don't want, for me personally, I don't necessarily want the person that was forced to be a medical doctor because their mom and dad were both doctors. I don't know if I necessarily want that person. They're going to go through school doing the bare bones just to try to get their medical degree to get mom and dad off their back. And maybe I'll be happy with this. But, I want the person that wants to be a doctor. I want the person that is passionate about being a doctor, because they've put the time and energy in to be the best doctor that they can, and they're probably going to provide the best care that they can. All right. So Adam Smith wrote The Wealth of Nations, 1776. And he basically said people act in their own self-interest. And he came up with this thing called the invisible hand. And the invisible hand is basically, imagine waiting at the side of the road, and when you're younger and you don't necessarily know how to cross the road, well, this invisible hand guides you across. And they're basically, if you do what's in your best interest, that's going to do and what is best for society. I want the person that wants to be a doctor to be a doctor. I want the person that is happy being a worker at McDonald's to be a worker at McDonald's. Okay, I go there quite frequently. I don't get like this by drinking water all the time. I like my McDonald's I like McDonald's Coke. It is what it is. I probably shouldn't drink it. I know I shouldn't drink it, but it's delicious. And McDonald's needs that. And as of right now, they don't have any robots that can hand me a Coke through the drive-thru, although that kind of stuff is kind of changing. But the invisible hand is going to guide people to do what's best for them. And if they do what's best for them, then society in turn is going to be better off for it. And that's the whole idea of the invisible hand. So Adam Smith, just remember, wrote The Wealth of Nations. No, Adam Smith was dealing with about self-interest, and Adam Smith was dealing with the invisible hand. The next part of a basic economy is competition. And competition keeps prices in line with the cost of production. If there's no other competitors, I can raise my rates really pretty high. And if I don't have, if I have lots of competitors, that's going to start to bring those prices back down a little bit and keep it a little bit closer in check. So that's kind of what we're looking at with that, especially with keeps prices in check. Competition also brings us better products. If you look at the major athletic apparels, you've got Nike and Reebok and Under Armour and Adidas, and there's lots of others. But a few years ago, Under Armour was the only one that produced any sort of cold gear. That's kind of like the tights that keep people warm, football players warm earlier, in the mid 2000s or whatever. But now you have all these other companies are making dry fit and warm gear and all this other stuff, and the material and everything is getting pretty good. And why is that? Because these other companies, Under Armour comes out with that. Well, Nike's like, well, I want to share that market. And so they start producing something that's going to differentiate their product from Under Armour. And Under Armour basically takes a look and says, oh man, we missed the boat on that. We need to produce something and we need to one up Nike. And Reebok comes in and Adidas comes in, and pretty soon you're not just having 100% cotton t-shirts anymore. You're having this really nice type of fabric that works well in an athletic setting. So competition is really pretty good for society. If you take a look at most of the companies, at most of the cities around the nation, wherever there's a Home Depot, really pretty close to that, there's going to be a Lowe's, and vice versa. And there were people that worked for each of these companies that would try to do research as to when's the next big box store going to pop up, and should we try to invest in real estate close to there. So, McDonald's, they're okay with Burger King or Wendy's popping up because that brings in more customers. If you remember back to supply and demand, one of the things that increases demand is an increase in market size. Well, an increase in market size, if I were to quote a baseball movie, if you build it, they will come. If I build a Burger King across the street from McDonald's, that's going to draw in more people. People are going to realize, oh, there's more than one restaurant to choose from. They're going to come here. If they see that there's a long line at McDonald's, they're going to go to Burger King. Or if there's a long line at Burger King, they'll go to McDonald's, for all practical purposes. Next, system of markets and prices. What does that mean? Basically, it means supply and demand. And so you're going to let the market force kind of dictate where the prices are. So if the price is way up here, if the price is way up here, from your supply and demand unit that what's going to happen to the price. Well, the price is eventually going to drop here to where market equilibrium is, where supply and demand are both happy, and that's going to be the set rate. If the price is too low, that means quantity demand is going to be too high, and what's going to happen to the price? The price is going to go up. So you don't need the government to come in and set prices artificially, because the market will take care of it itself. If a business is charging customers too much money for a product, well, the customers aren't going to go there and they're not going to buy it. And so either that company is going to have to adjust, and they're going to have to either improve their product, or they're going to have to drop their price even more, or an entrepreneur will come in and they'll set the prices at the rate that they need to be, and it'll drive that one company out. So fairly simple. You let the market decide what the prices are. You don't need the government regulating what the prices are. And then the last characteristic is this thing called limited government. And with limited government, this was supposed to fly in one at a time, but oh well. But with limited government, there's basically little interference from the government. The government stays out of the economy for the most part. The government's main role in a market economy, and please star, circle, highlight, underline this part, the government's role defines and enforces private property rights. Remember, I am able to own private property. You are able to own private property. The main role of the government is to make sure that person A over here doesn't infringe on my right to this private property. And so they set up a system of police officers and court systems, and they set that stuff up, and they'll write laws that help protect my private property rights. And that's their main goal in a market economy, in a true market economy. So make sure that you have that star, circle, highlight, underline it. The government's role is to define and enforce private property rights. The government in a market economy on occasion does provide some goods and services that are not provided efficiently by markets. One example of that is national defense. I don't really want Tom's national defense team overtaking our military. They're not going to provide the body armor that's necessary. They may not provide the best ammunition that's possible. Their goal is to make a profit. Well, in national defense, we don't necessarily want a profit to be made by the lowest bidder. We want to provide our military with the best equipment so that they have the best chance of obtaining whatever objective there is, and by keeping their soldiers safe. So in that instance, it's better for the government to come in and take over and run the national defense in our military. Okay. So that's it. That's what we have for you today. And be ready for this information is really to put that out there of what a true market economy is. The U.S. is very close to this, and it's close to a pure free market economy, but we do have a lot of government involvement. You do have to apply for various permits, and you have to get permission to do stuff, and you have to follow different rules and protocols that are set in place. And because of that, that means that we're not necessarily a true free market economy. And you'll see more examples as we move throughout the units, especially when we get into looking at different economic indicators and when we get into our developing nations section. But outside of that, have a good day.